All right, welcome everybody to the Crypto Club. This is Gons, and we have also Hobo here today. We are from the CoinScan project, from the Scan fam. Hobo, if you want to say hello.
Yep, what's going on? We're going to be running over some stories tonight, some new topics in the DeFi realm. Some crazy things going on this week.
Definitely. And it's a podcast that we've decided to start. There's a lot of new information that happens regularly in crypto, especially in DeFi. And so this will just be a podcast to kind of keep our thoughts organized and share information with you guys.
Yep. So we're gonna be doing this weekly, hopefully uploading every Saturday for you guys. So let's get into it. This first story we've got is the Bahamian government is hoping to allow residents to pay taxes with digital assets in 2022. And I don't know about you guys, but I was trading a bunch of crypto this year, and taxes were a nightmare. We just had tax day about 4 days ago. I know it was a pain for a bunch of people.
So, yeah, I mean, it's good to see. I think that, over time, it's nice to see that governments across the world are starting to adopt crypto and offer ways to, take payments in crypto, whether it be taxes or physical assets, land. So it's definitely a welcome sight. I think we'll be seeing more of it in the future. What do you think as far as, like, I feel like we're seeing a lot of these countries come out, slowly but surely over time. Do you feel like it's growing at a faster rate, Hobo, or do you think this is something that's still going to take, maybe a few more years before we really start seeing it grow exponentially?
I mean, I definitely think it's going to be something that we see take quite a few more years for places like the U.S., kind of those really bigger economies to do this. I feel like a lot of these smaller countries are kind of like the test subjects on implementing cryptos, then there's the whole topic of like CBDCs, where people have their quote doxed wallets that the government knows, and all the DeFi and cryptos ran through that, and the government knows about all that. That's kind of controversial, understandably so. I mean, the whole idea behind crypto is it being decentralized, and then you bring governments into the mix, and it is a morally sticky situation, but I know at least in the tax situation that I would have been much happier this year if I was able to pay my taxes with
crypto. For sure. I mean, it really is a double-edged sword because, I mean, this is what it takes to gain mass adoption and get more money into the industry. I mean, right now the Bitcoin is 80 trillion, I think, market cap. So it's gonna take a lot more mass adoption in order for, the growth that we want to see and to catch up to other industries. So at what point do we kind of accept the centralization and kind of give up some of the aspects that made DeFi and what it is?
Right, and I think that's just going to be something that happens as it happens, and also different governments will treat it differently, right? Like China, I believe, is already rolling out the CBDCs, and I remember reading an article this week that the first ever traffic fine was paid in the digital yuan. And so, I mean, that's definitely a landmark for crypto, but at the same time, it's through the CBDCs and all of that. But let's read a little bit more of the article. It says, in a white paper on the future of digital assets released on Wednesday, the Bahamas Office of the Prime Minister said the government will begin to enable payment of taxes using digital assets by working with the country's central bank as well as the private sector. In addition, the government plans to work on giving citizens access to crypto with the Bahamian dollar, and encourage greater use of the country's CBDC, the sand dollar. I think sand dollar is quite a great name for a country's digital stablecoin.
I think so too. It's something that if I definitely saw, like, just out in the open, I would probably look more into it to try to buy it.
Yeah. So. Bullish on sand dollar.
Yeah, I might have to look into that when they launch it.
Yeah, so it goes on. government will endeavor to ensure that digital assets are not used for the evasion of taxes or sanctions, and will seek to ensure compliance with all applicable tax information exchange agreements and domestic laws and agreed OECD standards, said the white paper. And you know, like, I don't know, there's a whole attitude in DeFi, you know, for better or worse, like not paying taxes and, you know, anti-government, and I guess that's kind of the spirit of the alternative side of crypto. And you know, it's definitely morally questionable. It's understandable on both sides.
I feel like, again, it goes back to it truly is a double-edged sword, and it's a matter of what the DeFi community is willing to give up in exchange for faster adoption.
Right.
So at the end of the day, right, if you're holding a lot of crypto in whatever category, if you're holding blue chips like, you know, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, whatever the main tokens, right, the blue chips, if you're holding those, or you're holding altcoins, or you're holding NFTs, the only real way those are going to see massive growth across the board is going to be with mass adoption. And I think that crypto can do it over time, but it's going to take a lot longer than what most people expect or want it to be. Versus the trade-off would be, yeah, we give up some of our private liberties, and we centralize the space a little bit more, and we get more regulation involved and more, you know, more things of that nature. And what'll happen is we'll start to see more money trickle into the industry, and that's just going to boost everything widespread a lot more. So it's a trade-off. And it boils down to, do we hold our ground and say, you know what, no, we'll take the slow approach and we'll do it by our rules, or do we give a little but get a lot back in return? For me, I think it's hard to answer, and I'm more in favor of the DeFi space and what it stands for and what it was built on. But at the same time too, I mean, it would be nice to see Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all these other sectors multiply by 2 or 3x because of mass adoption, right? I mean, that's truly what it's going to take to get us to those levels. So it's interesting to see what'll play out. But I think either way, if it doesn't happen with regulation and mass adoption, it will happen gradually over time.
Right. And you know, I mean, for DeFi in general to really reach its maximum potential, not just as far as market capitalization, but also in innovation, you know, there does need to be a level of regulation, right? Because it's just so hard and a great area to navigate around, kind of applying the current laws to any business ventures in DeFi.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. The only way we're going to really scale the technology upwards is by attracting these large corporations and these really high talent individuals into the space. And the only way we're really going to get on their radar is through some form of like widespread adoption and regulation and security, because nobody's also going to want to come in from the real world and develop this crazy new protocol and blockchain and then just have somebody fork it.
Yeah, right.
Because then all your efforts are wasted. So there does need to be that level of intervention and regulation in order for us to reach that space and also get larger minds and larger companies involved in the space.
Right. Yeah, maybe it'll be interesting. Maybe we'll start seeing some crypto patents.
I mean, I think that's really important and probably something that we will see. I mean, just like any other, you know, real world concept ideas, you need to patent your stuff in order to not have it just be stolen blatantly.
Yeah.
And it's still going to happen, but obviously to a lesser degree.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Well, get on to this next article here, where Mark Zuckerberg is announcing that Instagram will incorporate NFTs. He's kind of late to the game with this, I guess. He tried his Facebook digital currency, and I believe that got shut down in the regulation stage. Twitter's got their Twitter Blue platform with the NFT profile pics. That's cool. Like, bullish for NFTs, and it's some really outstanding adoption when you really think about how far things have come, even within a year, from people hardly knowing about what DeFi is to tons of Twitter influencers having NFTs actually assigned to the profile picture. Mark Zuckerberg bringing that to Instagram makes a lot of sense, and I'd be surprised if we didn't start seeing that in tons of other platforms very soon.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook and Zuckerberg in general have been taking quite a beating lately in the media's eyes, so at least he's rallying some support from the NFT community. It's a strong community.
Yeah, and I mean, not just the media's eyes. Have you seen his stock?
Yeah, that too. I mean, overall, he's just been taking a big L. But
yeah,
I think if you were to ask me what has the most potential in crypto, I would say NFTs. I think there's a lot of untapped potential there that people really haven't figured out yet what to do with NFTs.
right.
But it's something that once it is figured out, I think it will be probably equally, if not more useful than actual cryptocurrencies themselves and blockchain protocols, personally.
Right, yeah,
But
I think, I don't know if useful is the right word. I would say adoptable. Like, to the average person, I suppose it doesn't perform like a necessary task, but it performs something appealing that people want, right? Like, imagine you're playing like Call of Duty or Fortnite, and you spend $20 on a new skin for a gun or whatever. You're just throwing that money away for something digital in game, and you could be like buying an NFT this game for the same money, but you can turn around and sell it, so it's not like you're just pouring money into a hole that's never gonna get you an ROI.
I mean, yeah, it's so I don't think that the utility will come in the form of what's currently been tried and tested with NFTs. Like, I don't think skins for games is gonna be what breaks NFTs like to the next level, because at the end of the day, like, there's already Steam Marketplace for trading skins and stuff like that. I think there's other utilities and use cases for NFTs that just simply haven't been discovered yet, or the technology is not there yet to really take it to the potential it needs to be.
Right.
But I think that the way NFTs work and how they're designed is something that you really probably want to be looking into over the next few years, because it has a lot of potential. I don't mean NFTs in the sense of like profile picture avatars or skins or stuff like that. Like, there's the current NFTs that are being made that have some form of utility, like the ones where it's like passes, right? And you have access to exclusive places in the real world, or like the Coachella passes. Like, stuff like that is pretty interesting and somewhat on the right path, but it needs to go a lot further in that aspect. But I don't think the actual art per se is going to be what takes it to the next level. Right. I think it's going to be once somebody figures out something truly unique and valuable to do with NFTs.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think really a lot of the strengths of NFTs that we're going to start seeing are going to be less about like hitting a moonshot and more about the actual function of the NFT. Like a concept that I've heard is like, for example, like take Rolex, right? Like, there's tons of fake Rolex watches. If Rolex simply etched a microscopic QR somewhere on the Rolex, which linked to a verifiable NFT on the blockchain that identifies that as a 100% authentic Rolex, really there would be no way to falsify a Rolex if they could be verified through NFTs. And the same thing can be said for tons of different products, right?
Exactly, and it's a lot easier to do with NFTs because it's one singular item. So stuff like that, it's going to be groundbreaking, and it's going to really change the way that we look and use, different things in the real world. But again, I just don't think we're at that level yet.
Right.
But we certainly probably will be, especially too once again more capital and more brilliant minds start coming into this space and developing and creating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just getting on with this article here. So it says Mark Zuckerberg confirms Instagram's plan to add NFTs to the platform in the near term. Who knows what the near term is? Maybe it's a couple months. Maybe it's before 2023. I guess that will be up to Mark Zuckerberg. I really don't think that it'll take off on Instagram the same way it did on Twitter. I mean, even before Twitter integrated NFTs, it was already a huge platform for kind of that NFT and crypto space, right? Like, there's even the term crypto Twitter, which was mentioned at a congressional hearing. Like, people know about crypto Twitter. People don't really know about crypto Instagram.
No, I don't think they're associated.
Yeah.
Something interesting, if you look in the second paragraph, it says Zuckerberg hopes users would be able to mint their own NFTs on the platform within the coming months. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, that is interesting. I suppose that would imply that there'd be wallet integration. Maybe he'd be building his own wallet, the Instagram wallet, the Facebook wallet. I don't know. I know that I personally would not use such a wallet, but that is my view on that.
Definitely. I think one, I would never use it, and I think two, I'm curious to see the business model behind it, because I forget what it was. Do you remember this week there's something came out that Zuckerberg was going to charge like 33% for some crypto service?
Yeah, it was like 38%.
Yeah, 38% fee for what was it? Was it was it something in the metaverse?
I believe so. It was like for artists that are selling things in the Facebook metaverse. There's going to be a 38% fee that goes to like Facebook and some other services.
Let me look it up real quick.
It's quite ridiculous.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, so I'm curious to see if he's going to implement a similar approach with this. If so, I definitely don't see it taking off whatsoever.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting, and yeah, it looks like it was for the metaverse. So for creators, Facebook's going to take over a 30% fee on whatever is created and sold on their, in the metaverse. That's insane.
Yep. I mean, and you add on top of that like income taxes, because I'm sure that'll be taxed. It's really not creator friendly, and that is really goes against a lot of what NFTs currently stand for in the state that they're in. And
definitely, it just feels like he's out of touch with the space and what the consumers want at the end of the day, and why they came to crypto in the first place. So I mean, if that's the approach that they're going to take, I'm sure that they'll be phased out, relatively soon once crypto's widespread.
Right. Yeah, so we'll get on to the next here. We got OX Protocol gaining 67% overnight as Coinbase picks them for the new NFT platform. Should you buy? This is not financial advice. I would not buy the top. Maybe look at it in the long run. I have no idea. That's not what this podcast is about. But it's just cool seeing Coinbase finally come out with their NFT platform announcement. I know it's been something people have been speculating on for quite a while. There's a lot of projects that have been announced that are going to be listed on there that 10x as soon as the announcement comes out. And yeah, I think it'll bring a lot of volume to the NFT space. Coinbase is the
huge
crypto exchange in the US at least. And for them to have their own NFT marketplace is pretty big.
Yeah, it's huge for the NFT space. I'm curious to see. So, obviously, it ties in somewhat to this story. Obviously, OX token, went crazy after the announcement. There's been some controversy lately with. There was this one story where this one guy had basically found like a way to see what tokens were being listed on Coinbase.
Yeah.
And so he started buying large amounts of these tokens right before before the announcement, and he was making 10x on every single token. And so there's this discussion as well around Coinbase as far as like, how do you protect these kind of announcements and this kind of data from going out into the public? And then unfortunately, it's not the people that pick up the news first that get wrecked. It's the retail investors that we're trying so hard to bring into the space that end up losing money, and then we wonder why there's no retail in the space right now.
Totally. I remember earlier this week I saw a tweet where someone had seen on the blockchain that Coinbase had chosen OX protocol. I tried to find the tweet to bring it into this video. Could not go back and find it. Searched for a good amount of time. But, and I mean, really, if things are being found on the blockchain about announcements that are yet to come, I mean, it's kind of...
It's almost fair game.
Yeah. It's like, it's technically public knowledge. Like, anyone could go out and find it, but you've got to be one hell of a sleuth to be able to find that.
Yeah, I think that when you find it just on the blockchain itself, I think that's fair game, right? People should be rewarded for their efforts. I just wonder, and not only Coinbase too, other, there's going to be more companies and more projects that come into the space as it grows. How do you protect that, secure information from leaking out, especially as you start getting more and more employees, more and more people? I mean, the real world is the same way. Like it or not, there's always a loophole or a connection you can have with somebody inside that bypasses everything.
Yeah, I mean, just ask Nancy Pelosi.
There you go.
Yeah.
So curious to see how that'll play out as well, moving forward with exchanges and announcements and partnerships, stuff like that. But overall, I mean, as far as the article goes, I don't generally like to buy anything that is already being listed on large exchanges. Me personally, I'm a fan of DeFi and lower market cap projects. That's where you really find the gems and the best risk reward ratio. But
yeah, I mean, you could say that. It's also very easy to get wrecked. But
well,
yeah.
That's DeFi for you. That's the beauty of it.
That it is. So let's get on to the next story here. Thanks to DeFi, Ethereum edges out Bitcoin in global realized crypto gains. Now this is something I thought was super interesting because obviously Bitcoin is the crypto giant. It takes up, I believe, 40% of the total crypto market cap, if I'm not mistaken, something around there. But the total realized gains are larger from Ethereum, and I think that has a lot to do with all the things that are built on top of Ethereum. And Ethereum is really the crypto that gets used. Bitcoin is the crypto that gets stored. So I mean, Bitcoin's essential utility is a store of value. So I mean, it kind of says itself right there that people aren't so much focused on gaining on it.
No, but Bitcoin is, like you said, perfectly stated. It's just meant to be stored as value. I think Ethereum will eventually beat out Bitcoin in market cap because at the end of the day, utility is what matters and what wins. It's just a matter of time. So yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised to see it. I think I mean, we're already starting to see it in the markets too. I mean, the Bitcoin dominance is starting to fade.
Yep.
And Ethereum is honestly probably going to take over until, again, another innovator comes into the space and brings some, new technology and new use cases and utilities to the table. And again, competition is what makes industries grow. So I more than welcome it.
Right. And like really, crypto as a whole is only 10 years old this year. And I mean, when you think about it, like in the stock market, the top 10 companies have rotated so much throughout the years, and has never been one company to really stay on top throughout the test of time. And so, you know,
Of course.
who's to say something gets developed in 5 years that becomes number one and Bitcoin's at 10,000? Like, I mean, really, no one knows. You know, Bitcoin's got the first mover advantage. Obviously, it's the one that everyone knows. But this is all still very new, and everything can change.
Yeah, I mean, it's anything in life, right? You have to keep innovating and growing. You can't just remain stagnant. So, I mean, and this applies to everything. This applies to physical things and also, you know, internal spiritual things as well. You have to grow yourself as a person in order to keep going and improving yourself. Otherwise, you just remain stagnant and go nowhere.
Right.
So, it's happened in literally every sector of anything in the entire world. It's obviously going to happen in crypto, and I don't see Bitcoin being improved or, you know, updated in any way to start allowing utility and stuff like that. So it's a matter of time. Ethereum is the next runner up, and I'm sure somebody will come along and dethrone Ethereum later on as well.
Totally. You know, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how ETH 2.0 goes. You know, I mean, Vitalik is the king of time writing. He just announced that it's going to be later than his previous announcement. I don't know how many times that's happened, but, you know, it's understandable. Obviously, Ethereum is a massive project.
Yeah, it's going to take stages. I think it was in 3 phases, and we're currently in phase 2, I believe. So yeah, we still got a ways to go for that, but yeah, Bitcoin is going to fade out over time, so I welcome it.
Yep, no, I definitely agree. So let's see, moving on to the next story. Binance announcing its changes of service to users in Russia, essentially only allowing withdrawals. They can no longer deposit or trade on their account. And I thought this was interesting because originally, with like all the Ukraine and Russia war stuff that was going on, Binance took the position that it was not going to do anything because that goes against the kind of ideology of crypto, right? Decentralized, all of that, which is kind of ironic because the Binance Smart Chain is like the biggest centralized DeFi network.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, thanks to that, they have low fees, but also it's just crazy how big they are and they're centralized. And they make the argument that they're not going to, you know, make these changes to Russia because crypto's supposed to be decentralized anyways. You know, all these countries issuing sanctions on Russia definitely kind of makes the crypto space interesting. You know, a lot of countries are talking about pursuing prosecution on people and businesses that help Russian citizens and people in the country move funds in various ways, and crypto is definitely a vehicle for that. You know, I think every case is going to be different, right? But there are certain times in crypto where, you know, centralization does need to step in.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that I don't think so. Crypto, what it stands for, is basically the little guy. And at the end of the day, regardless of Russia versus Ukraine, you're not really harming the oligarchs or Putin with these sanctions. You're harming the mass population. And personally, I think that it's a step in the right direction for them to allow them to withdraw funds. So kudos to Binance. They're just not letting them make any money by depositing. But I mean, at the end of the day, the people that are being hurt by this are like the Russian, you know, the Russian civilians and citizens, and not all of them are good and not all of them are bad. But it's one of those things that I think sanctions in general should be targeted more specifically at the people involved directly, the higher ups, and not just a wide sweep of the country, because at the end of the day, there's always 2 sides to every story, and you're never going to capture everything completely. But one thing I do know for certain is there's probably a lot of people on the ground floor of Russia who were innocent and have been harmed by these sanctions and by their economy collapsing that probably didn't deserve it. So I don't think Binance should have ever really stepped in and taken a stance on it, but at least they're kind of backtracking now and allowing people to withdraw, so that's good to see.
Right. You know, and I don't know. I also think, you know, it's great that they're letting people withdraw and not just holding funds hostage, as exchanges are known to do, not particularly in targeted situations, but, you know, that's the reason people like their self-custodial wallets, is because you never know what an exchange is going to do.
Absolutely, and just another win for DeFi.
Yep.
I do not like exchanges,
Yeah.
and in my mind, like it just goes back to thinking about, you know, what if you're some kind of online creator that gets paid in crypto, and all of a sudden you can no longer withdraw, and you're trying to leave Russia for whatever reason, and now you can't because your funds are frozen. So those are the people that are getting hurt by these sanctions, not the oligarchs, not Putin.
Yeah.
Putin doesn't give a fuck. So yeah, I mean, good on Binance. Hopefully they don't do something like this in the future. I mean, it makes sense for countries in general to do sanctions, but private companies like this, it's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I also feel like they're under quite a bit of pressure from the countries to enforce such things, you know, just like I know the U.S. is prosecuting people that assist the Russians in moving funds and all that. So, you know, definitely, obviously, civilians should not be the target. And there's or it's just a messy thing, you know.
Yeah. Stay out of my money, CZ.
Right. Right.
Move on to this next one. This next one's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so this next story is talking about North Korea's Lazarus group being behind it, and Axie Infinity's Ronin hack. And this is coming from the United States Treasury and the FBI. So allegedly, this North Korean group hacked $446 million worth of ETH, which is absolutely insane. You know,
no wonder my ETH is losing value.
Right, right. I remember when this hack happened, like, Axie just tanked. I mean, it probably dropped like 20% in a day, and then quite a bit the following days. But, you know, I mean, this is a huge risk with decentralization and I mean, smart contracts in particular, right? Because you can't just go in and edit a smart contract once it's deployed. I mean, there's certain ways to do so with proxy contracts, etc. But, you know, I mean, one small mistake in a contract that goes unnoticed, and all of a sudden everyone's money is at risk. Like $446 million worth of ETH is so much to be lost, and especially to North Korea. Like, do you really want North Korea taking half a billion dollars from the rest of the world?
Yeah, that's the worst place it could have gone.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the dark side of DeFi, unfortunately. And again, it's another reason to kind of push for adoption and regulation, because unfortunately there's a lot of this going on, and my only advice for people is to really kind of understand what you're investing in and who's behind that, because a lot of it plays into, you know, who is actually on the team, who built the protocol, who coded everything, have you yourself checked the code. There's so much that goes into it, and it really comes down to doing your due diligence. You can't just assume that everything is safe, even if it's at, you know, 100 million market cap, 200 million market cap. Anything is vulnerable if it's not done correctly. It just takes one person to find the error.
Right. Yep, definitely risky, you know. And I think this is, like, these funds were stolen from the Ronin bridge, and hacks like this happen to bridges not infrequently. You know, it's uncommon for them to be this large. Excuse me, be this large, of course. But you know, I mean, even Vitalik says the future of crypto is multi-chain, but not cross-chain, and I think that's a big reason for that. Is a lot of these bridges have
a lot of vulnerabilities. I mean, that's where we're seeing most of these attacks is cross-chain stuff. So
Yeah.
Definitely important to do your own research on that and try to avoid those.
Right.
Something interesting, because I've been thinking about this too. I mean, eventually, what we have to realize is crypto right now is in early stages of almost what you would say a developing civilization.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting part in how you look at it is these are all problems that people faced and developed solutions for in the real world. So the interesting part is how to take those solutions and adapt them to the crypto space. So something like this, I've always thought of, okay, well, one of the most profitable businesses you could ever create in the Western world is an insurance company. And so how can you integrate an insurance company into crypto? And then you go down this rabbit hole and it becomes a lot harder than what you would think, right? There's a lot of fraudulent activity, there's multiple wallets, and there's a decentralized aspect to where, I can do something on one wallet and then claim another one isn't mine. How do you prove that I'm not connected to both of them?
Right.
So stuff like this is going to get figured out over time. And it's probably one of those things that once we do, we're going to, grow and transition onto the next problem, because all civilizations are is just you have a problem and then you overcome it and then it leads you further down the road and now you face a new problem.
Yep.
So it's probably a good idea to look back at history to see what we've done to overcome these things. And then you just really have to be creative and think outside the box of how to implement that into crypto. I'm not sure how you would prevent this or have some kind of insurance policy for the people affected by this, where you've lost, half a, 500, what was it, 500 billion?
500 million, just about 446 million to be exact.
Yeah, Jesus, that's huge.
Yeah, I know that the Anchor USDT staking protocol does have a option where you can have your USDT insured against any unstabling of the stablecoin, but you do get a reduction in your APR.
Yeah, so I mean that's a very small step in the right direction, but I wouldn't be surprised if later on down the road somebody figures out a profitable and also convenient way for users to kind of be insured on the blockchain. I think if somebody can come up with a way to make it a win-win situation for everybody, it's going to be something that we'll probably want to look into in order to, again, drive more retail and more mass adoption in.
Right. Yep. No, I definitely agree with you. And, it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of things play out in the space over the rest of our lifetime. I think it's going to be constantly changing.
I always love how people title these, like at the bottom it says that they'll post a full post-mortem.
Oh yeah,
with details of everything. It's
yeah, come to the bridge funeral.
Yeah, it's literally, they make it sound like it's a funeral, like an open casket kind of thing.
Yeah.
Here's my $500 million that I lost. Look at it.
Right. So yeah, let's go ahead and get to the next story. This is quite the interesting story. We got Binance embarrassed after unveiling swastika-like emoji on Hitler's birthday.
What was that?
I saw the tweet before it got taken down, and I didn't think anything of it until I saw a quoted tweet, and I was like, okay, yeah, that definitely does not look right. And I mean, here you can see, let's see, I'm pulling it up here. Look at this. This does not look right. Definitely does not look right.
No. I get what they were going for.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like a processor.
Yeah.
On Hitler's birthday, though, I mean, really, like, come on, CZ. What are you doing?
I almost wonder, I mean, it's too coincidental, like, is there like a hidden message behind it, or is it just like some low-level employee just trolling?
No, I mean,
You have to wonder.
yeah, he said, I remember him saying that it went through several layers of inspection and nobody caught it. So, who knows?
Yeah, that's insane. That's all I got.
Yep, I think this tweet right here sums it up pretty good. If I was the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, I would not make my logo a swastika on Hitler's birthday. I don't think I would either. It's pretty safe to say. So let's move on to, let's see, right here. So today, Infura went down for a little bit, which, if you don't know what Infura is, it's pretty much the node service that a lot of Web3 operates on, and the entirety of MetaMask has set as the node by default. So plenty of people were panicking, thinking that Ethereum itself was down, which was not true. It was Infura, the largest node service. I think this tweet right here sums it up pretty well. We got all of Web3 on the tiny stilt that's Infura. And, you know, I mean, really, it's a weak link just because of how much MetaMask has been adopted, and it's the only node service that MetaMask uses for some reason. I'm not sure why they don't have a backup infrastructure of nodes for users that don't really know what's going on. Because, I mean, I remember there was tons of people thinking that ETH was broken, but, you know, there's plenty of other node services, and you could have gotten around the Infura being down.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, I mean, hopefully it was a learning lesson for them, and they kind of have some backups in place in the future. It was definitely surprising to see that, though. I wouldn't expect that from MetaMask.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. You know, kind of. Hopefully, it was a little bit of a wake-up call to MetaMask as well. You know, there should definitely be some backup infrastructure in case of things like that, right? You can't rely on anything too hard when you're a company that big.
Absolutely. The scary part too is, I mean, it kind of ties in with some recent events that we've been seeing. Like, I mean, Uniswap now is essentially not blacklisting, but it's not allowing some wallet addresses to use Uniswap on the front end.
Right, right.
So stuff like this is like unheard of if you were in the space 6 months ago. And it's all starting to come out now, where you have these companies that you thought were decentralized, and, you know, now all of a sudden you're finding out that, unfortunately, just like the real world, there are vulnerabilities, and there are levels of control that you didn't expect that they have.
Totally.
And it's another reason to, you know, in my opinion anyway, push for decentralization and have users be in control of their own funds and everything like that, because that's a scary thing to think of, if you have your money and then you can't even swap it or move it around.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that USDT has blacklisted some addresses linked to some sketchy things, which, I mean, is understandable because, you know, obviously if it's
stolen funds, yeah,
like, you know, that makes sense, but it's also just a demonstration of the power that is available, you know.
Exactly.
And that amount of power is immense.
It's huge and it's scary. So it's definitely something, I mean, it's said so much in the space, but you really have to research where you put your money, how you protect it.
Right.
There's a lot to it.
Yeah. And I know that, you know, Uniswap has been coming under some scrutiny from the United States government because essentially they're saying that they allow people to list, you know, like fraudulent tokens, and there's lots of scams, etc., which, you know, is very true.
See, that's an interesting one, because I read part of that lawsuit, and so essentially they were saying that Uniswap doesn't provide like a clear distinction between actual projects and like obvious scams and shitcoins, for lack of a better term. And so I get it, but it's also a little ridiculous, because it's almost like the McDonald's hot coffee lawsuit,
right?
Where, you know, it's understandable because, yes, like as a consumer, you need to be aware that the coffee is hot, but at the same time, you're purchasing a hot coffee. What do you
Yeah.
expect?
Yeah.
You're going into DeFi. You know, what do you expect? It's literally the Wild West, and you can do anything with your money. You can create 50 scam tokens. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
good luck to you if that's what you want to do, because again, regulation is coming, and you will be getting some door knocks from the SEC.
Right.
But I mean, you got to be careful, and you gotta have some common sense. I mean, that's all I have to say about the subject. I think it's no different than the McDonald's lawsuit. It's the unfortunate reality of the world we live in.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. You know, like really 99% of the scams you're only going to run into if you are looking for brand new tokens that are, you know, sub 100K market cap. Although, you know, there are the exceptions, right? Like there's the infamous video of the Squid Game token getting rug pulled at like hundreds of
I,
millions of market cap. You got the whole Safe Moon scandal. Like, you know, there's exceptions, right? And really, it doesn't. I don't think the blame should fall on the exchange. I think it should fall on the people that are committing the fraud.
yeah, absolutely. It's about taking personal responsibility at the end of the day, and very off topic, but I think it's something that the world is definitely shifting away from, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, alright. Yeah, let's get into this last story here. Talking about Michael Saylor is secretly selling his Bitcoin and doesn't want you to know.
I saw this one briefly.
Yeah, I have not read through it. I saw something briefly about it with some wallet addresses. Didn't think too much of it because it was just very little information. But now we've got this whole news article here, so I guess we'll start digging into this. We got Michael Saylor has been one of the largest proponents and shillers of Bitcoin after his company announced they would be adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet in 2020. Since then, the Bitcoin community has rallied around him, providing him with millions of followers and giving him a massive public spotlight. As you know, I mean, really that's about as true as it gets. Michael Saylor is, you know, I mean, he presents himself like his life revolves around Bitcoin, which I mean, I guess is understandable, as that's what his company is all about, or so it says. This next paragraph here says, contrary to popular belief, Michael Saylor has a shady past and has been keeping important things from the public, including how he has secretly been dumping thousands of Bitcoin from his company for months, while at the same time urging others to take out double mortgages and go all in.
Yeah, see, stuff like that, like, really grinds my gears.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, it's up to you as an individual. So these idols that people worship, I mean, at the end of the day, you are their exit liquidity.
Yeah.
And, right, I mean, it's happened in the real world. You know, at the beginning, I remember there used to be like tons of influential financial advisors coming on to different news stations and doing segments about how Bitcoin's a scam and you shouldn't buy it. Meanwhile, they were going out and buying Bitcoin.
Right.
So, you know, I always tread these kind of stories lightly. I if there's blockchain evidence that he has sold some Bitcoin, you know, it just depends what he's saying. If he's telling people to double down right now as he's selling, then it's probably not a good sign.
Yeah,
But
probably not.
at the end of the day, it's one of those things, like, I don't really lean on, especially, like, I don't even want to call him like an influencer or influential, but I don't lean on people for this kind of financial advice or market advice, right? This is
Right.
something that you have to come to your own conclusions for. And at the end of the day, if somebody's telling you to buy something or to invest in something, there's a hidden agenda behind it,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. No, totally. And you know, I mean, I feel the same way. You know, like really, you just got to come to your own decisions. But at the same time, you know, there's plenty of people that are new to investing and just don't know where to start. You know, and so they look things up, and all of a sudden you got Michael Saylor telling you to take out a double mortgage and go all in, and not, you know, this guy runs a billion-dollar company, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I mean, from a outsider point of view, you know, he'd be a trustable person. And if he's telling you to take out double mortgages and go all in, like, I mean, hopefully you don't do that, but, you know, obviously that'll be perceived as like he thinks, you know, he's obviously bullish.
Yeah, double mortgage.
Yeah, I know. Oh man.
Guy's a scumbag. Definitely a scumbag.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, yeah. In fact, he's ranked the #1 loser of the .com bubble. Not a great sign. The .com bubble was one of the largest bubbles in history and went on from 1995 to the 2000s. It was carried by extreme speculation for internet-based businesses, mainly with a .com domain for the internet address. When Michael Saylor first got into Bitcoin, I wanted to do more research into his background to see what other investments he's made, mainly to see how they played out and analyze his investment track record. It's always essential to don't trust, verify, which is very true, and do your own research on public figures, cryptocurrency stocks, and everything else. After scouring the internet for information that could verify his track record and better paint an image of who exactly this guy was, I ended up stumbling across a 20-year-old archive called the $1 Billion Losers Club. Think your stock losses were huge. Imagine being one of these guys, written by Fortune magazine. By using Thomson Financial and Bloomberg data, they came up with a list of who got hit the hardest in the tech bubble. Ranked at first place was none other than Michael Saylor, who lost $13.53 billion, which was the largest and fastest financial loss ever at the time.
Hey, he's got to make it back somehow.
Yeah, and you know what? He's made history already. Not for the good, obviously, but you know, I mean, a lot of people are calling our current situation everything bubble, and you know, him being the top loser of the .com bubble, kind of a funny coincidence.
Did you see this pic where he called like the very, very top of Bitcoin? If you scroll down a bit.
Let's see. Oh my. On September 7th, El Salvador will officially begin using Bitcoin as its national currency alongside the US dollar. Every cyber hornet I know is planning to buy $30 in Bitcoin tomorrow in solidarity with the people of El Salvador. Oh wow. Saylor. Poor El Salvador. They were
El Salvador got dumped on.
Right. Well, let's see. It's saying MicroStrategy sells Bitcoin. So it looks like here we've got a wallet chart. As we can see in the chart below, Michael Saylor has transferred his Bitcoin to a secondary address that has been using Coinbase and OKEx to sell Bitcoins. You got the main address right here, second address right here. Michael Saylor has secretly dumped $63 million worth of Bitcoin while announcing they were purchasing. So in essence, they announce every time they buy but refuse to say when they sell. Since the funds were transferred to a private LLC, this is technically legal, although very unethical. So far, MicroStrategy has dumped over 8,000 Bitcoin. I expect them to dump more in the coming months. Be careful out there, bulls. You know, I have not personally looked on the Bitcoin network for these transactions myself. Mr. Whale right here is quite prominent figure. I would be very surprised if this was not accurate information. He is a perma bear, though. I don't think I've ever seen him be bullish, so you know, it's definitely got some bias on this story, but not looking good for Michael Saylor.
Nope. But hey, at least he's making some money.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got enough for a couple more pounds of cocaine. MicroStrategy insiders also dumping their shares. Despite all of the already concerning things we discussed about Michael Saylor and his company, there are still more. SEC filings show that MicroStrategy's largest executives have been secretly dumping millions worth of shares. The executives clearly aren't too optimistic about the company's future, hence why they're dumping at the highest rate in over a decade.
Oof.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw that chart too. It was pretty nasty.
That is great. This is excellent news. Right as things with Russia are heating up, right as inflation is going crazy, right as the Fed is announcing faster rate hikes. Great news all around, you guys. You know, really make sure you got some food stocked up.
Build a shelter under your house.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael Saylor is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Over the years, his constant sketchy behavior and fraudulent practices have painted a completely different persona than what he claims to be. The same guy who was just yelling at a group of people at the 2022 Miami Bitcoin conference to never sell has been dumping hundreds of millions worth of Bitcoin.
Oh, no way. Oh my god, this guy's the worst.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, I don't know. Michael Saylor just gives me like weird uncle vibes.
No, he's the guy typing in the Telegram chat like, why are you guys selling? Meanwhile, he's literally pressing the sell button.
Right. Well, I think that about wraps up everything for this week. It's been a pleasure doing our first podcast. Look forward to coming back next week and bringing you guys all the new things that happen. You know, crypto never sleeps. But yeah, this has been Hobo and Gons from the CoinScan team with Crypto Club, and we will see you next week.